10.0, we convene our regular meeting at 7:39 p.m. I'd like to ask Mr. Fox to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Everybody please rise. Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. We're going to move on to 7.0, public comments, recognition reports, no cards. Moving on to 8.0, correspondence, proposals, reports. 8.1, AADUSD representative, Mr. Jorgensen. 8.2, CSEA representative. We're going to move on to VHS construction.
And let me say, Mr. President, neither one of the student reps are available tonight. They have some heavy-duty exams tomorrow, and that's where they're at.
Thank you very much.
You want classes?
I can speak for the one rep.
Mine's not studying.
Physics and Spanish.
Okay, well I got some work to do when I get home.
AP Spanish, so.
Okay.
Okay, well, I know Rylie would have done an excellent job, and thank you for mentioning that. Thank you for mentioning that. Moving on to 8.4, new construction.
I'm going to save my comments for the change order.
Okay, 8.5, superintendent report.
I have nothing.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fox, any comments?
No, nothing until this week.
Mr. Ridenour? Mr. Distasso?
Fall Festival in the high school is Saturday, so hopefully the community shows up. This is while they have PTSO has fundraisers throughout the year, this is a significant fundraiser for them. It's also an opportunity for ASB and other student organizations to fundraise, as well as other entities in the district. So hopefully we have a good turnout. Remind everybody.
Is this where the famous cake auction happens?
It is the famous cake auction. I will be there.
We are on this road.
Bidder again?
I made the mistake of showing up a couple times.
Get out of my way.
I know, you'll go to any
$7,200 at one point.
Yeah.
My problem is there's always a parent there that's representing the fire department.
Ah!
And the fire department pulls their money together, and so I'm bidding against the fire department.
Have the boots, right, with the cash, right?
You know, I'm bidding against the fire department. You know, the parents bidding with not her money, with the fire. We always joke about it. She's using the whole fire station's funding allocation, and I'm sitting there looking at my balance sheet going, do I want the one with the scarecrow or the other?
Am I going to be able to?
But I always seem to get something out of that.
Mr. Layton? No. Thank you very much. In the interest of time, I'll skip to 9.0, consent agenda. It's recommended the following consent agenda items be approved. 9.1, minutes of our regular meeting for October 8th, 2015. The warrant register and the Community Collaborative Charter of the School Memorandum of Understanding, our MOU. And 9.4, Community Collaborative Charter Schools Special Education Memorandum of Understanding. I will move this in. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Distasso. Any discussion regarding consent agenda? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
5-0-0.
I'm sorry, who moved to do so?
I moved it in and Mr. Distasso seconded it. 10.0, personnel services, approval of classified employees. It's recommended the board approve employment of the following classified employees. Number 151648, 649, 650, and 651. Do I have a move?
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
5-0-0. 10.2, payroll technician job description. recommended that we approve this job description. Do I have a move? I'll second it.
Mr. President, just briefly, I wanted to, and same comment goes to 10.3. 10.2 and 10.3 are dedicated to the charter school initiative and some of the things that we'll be doing there. This is not an additional employees. These are just a reclassification of 2 current employees that we're looking at and working with the union to reorganize their job duties to address some of those. In addition to that, we also will have an upcoming, the only position we will have is upcoming. All of these numbers are currently in the budget we planned for and were previously discussed. Obviously, this is just a job description, but based on approval, we do one out. In other words, these 2 folks are currently on staff and just will transition in new job descriptions.
When their job descriptions change, or will there be any budgetary impact, even if it's already accounted for?
There is an increase because they have additional job duties, but that's been planned for.
But it's in the budget.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And it is contingent on existing funding remaining at its current.
That's correct.
Correct.
That is correct.
Any further discussion regarding 10.2? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 500. 10.3, Administrative Assistant, Account Technician job description. As you explained, the same applies. Thank you, Mr. Fox. I will second that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 11.0, Educational Student Services, Community Collaborative Charter School Material Revision. I will open the hearing at 7:47. Any public input?
Well, before.
I have input, but it will be under 11.2.
Well,
The one, two.
it's a little unusual.
I can if you'd like.
It's a little unusual to do it this way, but I don't know that the public, it's a public hearing,
Yeah.
but if somebody wanted to speak on the issue, I don't know that they would understand what they were speaking to. So it's a little, in some respects, it's a little out of order, but I think for, I don't know, just governance purposes, if you would describe now
11.2.
what 11.1 is,
Okay.
and then if anybody chooses to speak on it, then they can speak on it. So we can at least say that the public understood what the issue
That's fine. I just, as Mr. Distasso says, I generally wait to reserve my comments on 11.2 because this is specifically reserved for community input. This gets kind of backwards because of, they may need to know what the issues are before they can actually speak to it. So in Community Collaborative, it is a charter school that we currently have approved. The board approved the petition. This is a revision, and basically it's a revision of the previous petition. The only addition that is currently being considered under this particular revision is an omission of STIRS. And why I say it's an omission, meaning that they had planned for it, they had budgeted for it, it's in their actual budget, and I had given a few previous documents that were previously approved, and so that is in their budget. It's a line item, and they just have it planned. The issue is through a variety of different venues, we recognized that it wasn't actually in the petition. Well, LA County and STIRS and everybody has to have it in the petition and then aligned with the actual budget. This will correct that omission in the petition. That's simply all it is. There's nothing else associated with it.
So, Mr. President, I would then re-ask, if you would, I would request that you ask the public if they had any comments based on the superintendent's presentation.
Anybody like that? Okay, thank you. Then we'll close the hearing at 7:51. And we move on to 11.2, Resolution 15-16.04, Community Collaborative Charter School Material Revision. Do I have a move? Thank you, Mr. Fox. Any discussion? All in favor?
Okay. Yeah, I have.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I presume, Doctor, you don't have anything else to say?
No.
Okay. My only comment on it is when I read it, it is a cost to charter school of just under $348,000. And so the superintendent has clearly indicated that it was actually budgeted for that $348,000, but that they have capacity in their budget, cash flow in order to meet that obligation. So as a result, I don't have any issues with it. And this appears to be, as the superintendent said, it's ministerial in nature, to simply update the petition to reflect the change so that STIRS recognizes the petition and the charter, and they can start accepting the contribution. So because it's budgeted, I'm fully okay.
Thank you, Mr. Distasso. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. The next item is an agenda item that probably gives you the most honor to bring up and things that I brought up. And I'd like to open 4.1. Do I have a move?
I'll move it.
Thank you. Mr. Layton, second.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Layton. This is a memorial recognition for Milewsky. It's recommended that the board approve and identify the VHS library to be named the Milewsky Memorial Library. Any discussion?
Just to reiterate that upon her passing and at her memorial service, there was a promise made that once the high school construction got to the point that it was at, even though everybody understood it would be several years, and it was, that in recognition of all the work that Kim did for this school district across all schools, and because of the work she did to pass the bond and the effort she put into all the bonds, that it was fitting that we attempt to give her recognition on the campus of the new high school that she fought so diligently for. So tonight is a culmination of bringing that promise to fruition and recognizing a dear member of the community who we all miss. And I'm pleased to see Bob here tonight to witness it. And it's more than well deserved. And I'm glad that we're at the point where we can finally dedicate the library to her.
In terms of hours and effort and just heart, I haven't met someone that has surpassed her in that regard. To the point I would have been okay to name the high school after her. But it's an honor for me to do this, and she was really exemplary in a way, like I explained last time. She continued to volunteer from first grade to 12th grade every year, even though her son, if he wasn't in the elementary school anymore, she was still there. When he was in the middle school, she was in elementary school and the middle school. When he was in high school, she never got to see Bodie graduate from high school. But to go to this high school that she worked so hard, I mean, I have her image being at the corner of Sierra Highway and Abugosa Canyon, you know, holding up signs. I mean, in terms of hours, in terms of hard effort, no one did more. It's a great honor to name the library after her. Can we have a vote on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Can I say something?
Sure. Yes, please.
We'll tall for this thing. Just take it out.
You can.
I think you can hear me. Yeah, good. I know what she'd be doing if she's standing here right now. She'd be half embarrassed because she never wanted a pat on the back. She just liked to work. But I know she'd be tremendously proud. And I know my son, Bodie, it means a lot to him. He asks me all the time how things are going here at the school. And he's going to come back someday and see that. It's going to mean a lot to him. He's now a senior at the University of Colorado. So he's a business major. I've never met anybody that's worked as hard. Now, I'm supposed to be a hard worker according to the 3,500 members that I was the president of that local. But I got to tell you, every day I worked with her, she kicked my butt. There was no contest. So yeah, I think it's well deserved as well. I know, like I said before I close, it means so much to me and Bodie both. She would be embarrassed. She wouldn't want the pat on the back, but she'd have a smile from ear to ear. So thank you so much. It means a lot to our family, and I'm still continuing to work at the school. He's long gone.
Thank you for sharing your service.
Sure.
Thank you, Bob.
She's still smiling, Bob.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, we're going to move on to 12.2, Cultivating Creative Minds Consultant Agreement. It's recommended the board approve the Cultivating Creative Minds Consultant Agreement. Do I have a move?
Move.
Mr. President, if you would, I'd like to have Ms. Lytle give a little brief explanation of this.
This is a returning agreement from last year for Milewsky, but I think before we talk about the actual agreement, we wanted to review our goals with the LCAP and how this would fit our academic needs for the kids and what this contract will bring. It is a non-profit organization. They're going to provide us 3 teachers this year to put visual and performing arts into place during the school day so the teachers can then be released to go work in grade levels outside of that. So I wanted to point that goal 1 is to maintain and increase our grade level proficiencies in the Common Core areas for students by assessing and having them master their Common Core standards. That's what's taking place while our children are learning these 3 teachers with the visual and performing arts. So it's kind of a win-win. Last year we had 2 teachers, and with the growth of Meadowlark now having an additional 2 classes, we're looking to increase it down to 3 teachers that will come on into the school for us.
So in other words, there's a release time associated, and these particular teachers are working under the direction of Ms. Vardy and continuing to work on proficiencies through the Common Core. So that's in essence what's happening here, but in addition to that, we're utilizing it. A couple years ago, I don't know if you remember, we did it through the usage of PE. This particular usage is through VAPA, through the Visual Performing Arts, and so that's in essence what we're doing with this particular initiative. So the goal is to get release time for some teachers as well, and so it's again, what she's saying, it's a win-win for both the kids and the teachers. And I know for a fact, I've seen some of the initiatives Ms. Farley's doing. I mean, she's it's not, for lack of a better term, it's not get coffee and sit around the coffee machine. These teachers they're doing a great job and working hard for it, and so we want to obviously support our teachers and continue this. It's already in the budget. It's been associated with the budget last year. For whatever reason, again, I know it's an omission, and I think part of it was because we're adding scope. The scope is an additional teacher, because we have more teachers, more kids this year. So because of our growth, we ended up there.
And how do we intend to measure whether or not the release time that is granted through this program, how do we intend to measure the effectiveness or whether there's results coming out of it in terms of math and ELA?
I've got an answer, but I want to hear yours.
And I don't know if there'll ever be a direct correlation with everything that we do in staff development to make sure that it's tied. This is definitely one thing that's needed. We need to build professional learning communities within our teachers. We need to have all, let's say, 5th grade teachers looking at the same assessments and analyzing all of the kids and what curriculum we need to do to help those that don't understand and those that do. So can we directly say, it's going to increase our scores by 2%, having that, but we can say all of these measures that we're putting together, it's going to bring the time of learning. So, and right now we don't have a visual and performing arts program here, and this is going to enhance that as well, because eventually we will start looking at those standards too, and those are just as important.
So, at least if nothing else, and you mentioned 5th grade, is it the 5th grade one of the target grades that we looked at when our first test results came back?
Math was pretty
Math. regardless of whether we can pinpoint it to this or holistic approach, is to see collectively if those scores don't rise in subsequent years.
Well, I can tell you this, that 2 years ago, it was about 2-3 years ago, when we used the PE and we did something very similar, I can tell you that scores jumped the following year. Now, was it indicative to that particular release? Like she's saying, I think it's really hard to isolate certain events. I think collectively, I think what she's doing is obviously utilizing it to leverage it as a piece for additional mass support, because that is our focal point. We talked about that. So yes, the belief is teachers work more on it, and they collectively work on it, and they work on their skill set in delivering the curriculum and making sure we're delivering Common Core and not the old CST. The assumption is that yes, obviously it's going to go up, but it's going to be really hard to tie it to that event. But I think collectively we can tie it to improved scores if you look at the whole totality of the program.
I mean, for a $16,000 program like this, for 1 year, I think on the surface it would be easy to say, hey, you know, it's just 16 grand, it's got to be awesome, it's got to be something, right? But at the same time, our fiduciary obligation to our constituents requires us to have some kind of a tangible and solid kind of return that we can not mind say that this program that we spend money on, I can say that it's something. I think that's what Mark is asking, that while obviously it's going to be beneficial on some level, we have some kind of way to gauge in terms of numbers, to know if we can actually, if it has.
Well, first and foremost, though, I'd like to point to, I think that the associated benefit the kids are getting from the digital art, performing arts program is extremely high. That's first of all. So because we don't have one, I mean, that's obviously something that kids are going to be able to experience at this school. I think a secondary part is obviously the instructional staff have an opportunity to collaborate together during the school time to be able to kind of work on things they should be doing. So that, I see it as a twofold issue.
Right, fair enough.
Okay.
I think it's a very creative way to try to solve two problems at one time and fairly inexpensive.
16.
Hopefully it will show up.
Yeah.
The numbers as part of a bigger.
It's just,
Thank you.
statistically.
I understand. I think it's a
Certainly support.
seems very reasonable.
Mr. Distasso, are you ready to vote?
Yeah, buddy.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0-1-12.2. Doing business as JTS Construction. Enclosure Vasquez High School Project Phase 1. It's recommended the board approve the change order number 6 for JTS. Do I have a move?
I'll move.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Thank you, Mr. Distasso. Discussion?
Mr. President, I'd like to give a brief explanation. I know a lot of stuff on here, the A through double D, so as you go through all the process. Understand that there's multiple different pieces on here that were associated with Phase 2, simply because we were able to omit things that weren't required in Phase 1. So you can see several of these things are credits. The net credit being to the guaranteed maximum price of the lease-leaseback contract is $68,748. There are some adds, but again, the net credit is $68,000, meaning the guaranteed maximum price is going down $68,000 and change. However, that $68,000 is being transferred to Phase 2 because not all of it, but meaning that there's going to be additional work being associated with Phase 2, taken out of Phase 1, and then infused in Phase 2. The issue with this is we're not quite prepared to deliver Phase 2 change orders yet to you because obviously there's issues with the school, meaning we're not there yet. There's still things yet to be developed, and we'll be bringing back to you Part 2, which is Phase 2. This is kind of to wrap up Phase 1, if you will. Now, it may not be in whole, but it's pretty close. We're getting close to wrapping up Phase 1. Also, I want to make sure everyone understands there were quite a few things in here that we value engineered out when we didn't have the money to begin with. We only had Phase 1, we didn't have Phase 2 money, and we took out quite a few things that we could afford to get it under the guaranteed maximum price to make sure we could build option E at that point. This particular change order basically reinstates many of those things that we knew we needed, which is, again, what students and teachers are enjoying today, which is high tech. A lot of it was technology. A lot of it was, you can again see, there's quite a few things in here that we put back in after we got phase 2 money. So again, it's a piece that, and you'll see there's different associated dollar value. We're still within our budget. This does not increase the guaranteed maximum price. It actually decreases it. So with that, I don't know if you have questions. I've answered several of Mr. Fox's questions. I appreciate all of your questions as well as Mr. Distasso. So any other questions from the board?
Well, I'll just say the way I conceptualize this, and correct me if I'm wrong, I asked all those questions, is effectively there's $100,000 of scope we're taking out of phase 1. It will go into phase 2 because the time is not right to do it in phase 1. It's a lot of concrete work around the gym. So we want to be able to put a bow on phase 1, and you can't if you can't do the concrete work because you're actually building the gym. So that we expect to go over to phase 2 at the same dollar value.
Correct.
Okay. There's $40,000 worth of adders that, and that's why it's only a net $60,000 reduction in phase 1, even though phase 2 will see somewhere near the whole $100,000 increase, is this $40,000 of adders, and that was, again, and this was explained to me, to make sure that we could build phase 1, we pulled out some of the technology. Then when the budgets were going well, we put the technology back in. We all see it when we go there, but now we've got to pay for that. And although it is now showing up in the guaranteed minimum price adjustments, that money was always there as an allocation beyond the contracted value, so it was always budgeted. It just wasn't in the contract.
Right.
So now we're moving it from the budget allocation into the contract. So it was that kind of conceptual accounting that I'm perfectly comfortable with.
Several of these things as well, if you'll recall, I automatically, in part of the contract, put in allowances. And those allowances gave us, say for example, $600,000 in technology. We knew there was going to be a price associated, but it was a design, bid, build kind of scenario. So that's kind of where we're at. This is just to kind of ministerially clean it up for phase 1, doing all the adds and the pluses, and obviously the net value is a $68,000 credit.
And just to, in a general sense, clarify what Mr. Fox basically said in detail, specific to this situation, we have this going on because we started phase 1 thinking we had no matching fund. We're going to just build the phase 1 option E of the school. Once we started doing that, in the process of that, suddenly we had the whole amount, and we're having phase 1, phase 2 going on simultaneously. And that's where most of these change orders are coming from. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm monitoring the agreement for VHS. 12.4, I'm sorry. 12.4 JSIS maintenance and monitoring agreement for Vasquez High School. Do I have a move?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenour. And any discussion?
Real quickly, again, let me give you a summary of this. This is, again, we have our, what I'm going to call an environmental, but it's our septic system, and that's the required monitoring services for that particular unit to ensure that it's operating correctly and that there's not any ground water pollution, things like that. This is required. That's why it's ratified. We've been doing it, and we're required to do it for the duration of the life of the septic system. So we have to do it. It's all part of the requirement.
Any questions?
And this is going to be an ongoing
That's correct.
annual cost of $1,000.
That's correct.
I think that's a pretty good cost. My annual cost is $250 a year for 3 people.
It's cheaper than the sewer system.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 12.5, it's going to have an amendment.
Mr. Porter, who moved that in? Mr. Fox?
Mr. Distasso moved 12.4 and Mr. Ridenour seconded it. That was unanimous.
Thank you.
You're welcome. 12.5, professional services contract earth system, Southern California Geotechnical Engineering. This is for for Vasquez House 2 project phase 2. And it's recommended the board approve the professional services contract Earth Systems.
Mr. Porter, if you could discuss the amendment
Yes.
that I proposed.
Basically, the amendment that you proposed in different documents relating to 12.5, instead of primary road,
Instead of secondary.
the road was, instead of being called primary road, it was called secondary road. They should say primary.
Yeah.
So they should say primary. We will make those corrections in the different documents. And the attachment that I have with the agenda, I don't see that.
I found it. It's on
It's in the backup, it's in that document.
It's on the last
paragraph.
page, second paragraph.
For the record, it's there under a September 24, 2015 proposal letter from Earth Systems of Southern California.
But it's also in the document Mr. Fox is referring to, and we're going to make that change in the final amendment.
All documents that have to do with 12.5 will
Should reflect.
reflect as primary and not secondary.
Thank you.
Do I have a move with that?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Distasso and Mr. Ridenour. All in favor? Aye. Any suggestions for 13.0 future agenda items?
I just have a question, but I don't know that it's a future agenda, we might already have it on there, but I missed the last meeting where I think you might have discussed it. The disposition of the buildings that are currently temporary buildings, and I called you about it.
Yeah.
Explain to me, anything changed? Is that on the agenda for next time?
Let me put it this way, I'm hoping so. And the reason being, there's a whole process. It's all driven by ed code. We have to ensure that we're going to declare it surplus. So once I'm satisfied that we've met the conditions of ed code, yes, it'll be on there. My goal is to make it for that November, because we only have one in November, one in December. I want to get it done in November. So, yes, I put it that way. My hope is that.
I think we need to be somewhat sensitive that we don't give these to someone that goes and puts them next to someone else. And, you know, people are really upset.
An auction's an auction.
Yeah, we can't do that. An
But I'm
auction's
saying
an
we're
auction.
giving them to people just to.
Unfortunately,
And
you
I
can't
have-
say, you get one, what are you going to do with it? And that can't
It's
be
not
part of the
a
criteria.
comment originating from me, but I've heard that.
I understand.
So you know, and we don't want to have any residual negative effects where we have just throwing these damn things away.
So what would you prefer in an auction? Is
Not
an
to have
auction
any kind of
otherwise-
negative thing come back to us.
I'll give you a suggestion. I suggest that, I think an auction's a great idea. I think that also we should see what get an estimate for the cost of having it removed by recycling.
Okay, so let me give you an example. If you're going to have an auction's an open, public opportunity to buy them. We don't get to decide
I
where and
understand.
when they go.
I understand. The
So,
choice
but
is whether to
we can't
auction
do
them
it.
or have a recycler take them away.
So you're
If
saying
that's a
that
viable
not have
option.
any auction.
I think that we're dismantling a campus. Should be more than one option on the table for how to cost effectively dismantle
Sure.
a campus. And one option on the table is to auction them, which might be a revenue generator. Another option on the table should be at least to explore whether or not there's a recycling company or somebody out there who will take them
Or a church or something like
and
that.
dismantle them.
Well, here's my question.
Because, sure, I think that we should look into that. It shouldn't be haul them away at any cost when we could make money off of it. On the other hand, I do think there might be some people
Or a
in town
combination. Or
very unhappy if they show up in their backyard.
Here's my question.
No, come see us.
Here's my question. Are we required to have an auction? I thought we were required.
I believe so. Mr. Wagner, I'm going to have to look at the.
I don't think we have, I think it's surplus
easy.
property and we're robbing money from somebody in the
I
state
believe so.
senate if we don't.
I think you have to sell.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to check into that. Mr. Fox asked me to check into that. I'm going to check into that, but I'll let you.
Because I think they're viable, in an
Viable
ideal
assets.
world, there are viable people out there that would either remove them for us and
Yep.
free.
Yep.
We shouldn't pay for it no matter what.
Well, that's what I thought. There might be a combination of things. Instead of, if we hold an auction legally and nobody buys them, then we may be able to look at, that's why I'm asking.
Any other opinions?
If we legally have to auction,
Okay.
then let's
We can't-
auction.
We can't get into too much discussion because it's not agenda. So,
Right, intro.
none of it really
I was
matters.
really just interested in when it's on.
So,
Sorry, next time.
I
That's fine.
I think when the superintendent is
It's going to be on
prepared,
our agenda next time, so we don't need it on the future.
Okay.
under the spirit of 13.0, let's do this, that when the superintendent is ready to put it on the agenda, that he simply bring back several different options for the board to connoiter, and we'll figure out, at that point, what our consensus
He
is.
just says he's gonna put on the next one. Are you good with that?
Well, I'm not for having it put on the agenda until he's ready to have it reviewed.
So let's put on future agenda items. Right now, I'd like to be on there, please. Put on future agenda items, and then once you've satisfied Mr. Distasso, we can put it on the agenda.
Not satisfy me, it's
Yeah.
when he's ready
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
to have it on the agenda,
Yeah.
then we'll hear it. I think we're all anxious to snap our fingers and have the gym built, and have the portables taken away, and have the track put on, and have the girls softball field put on, but
Hurry up.
there's only so much we can do, unless,
Go as fast as I can.
unless there's a bewitched here somewhere that we can twinkle our nose. We're just gonna have to suck it up and be happy with what we have until there's something more to be happy about. So we can certainly put it on the future agenda item when the superintendent is ready to bring it forward. If I hear Mr. Fox correctly, he's looking for multiple potential options on how we can address the issue. So when you're ready to bring it forward, do so with several options to evaluate it.
If it's within our rights to do so, I will, or not, I'll provide
I
you.
guess
why
the
it's
main
not.
thing
There
is
you go.
if we have to option them or not, right?
I have the
That's the
can,
first
if
thing.
somebody else has the match, we have a big homecoming bonfire, and it'll be wonderful, marshmallows,
So let's just put it on the future, and then we'll take it from there,
Yes, sir.
and that way everyone's satisfied. 14.0, calendar, our next board meeting is November 12th. We're going to have one at Thanksgiving, of course, and then it's followed a month later, December 10th. Nothing to report on closed session. So no 15.1. 16.0, do I have a move to adjourn?
Move.